What is the strangest way you've seen someone quit? Yesterday, my boss literally ran away from work after quitting. So my boss, retail, called me into work for noon and was showing me how to check the company email and set alarm codes for the doors, and then gave me the password to his company email. This was strange. Then when the regular guy came to start his shift at 1, he closed the store and came out with all his stuff and said, "I am officially done with this company as of right now." The phone started to ring and I reached to grab it. Knowing this was the district manager and not wanting to confront him, he literally ran out of the store, and I haven't seen him since. Apparently he had just emailed the district manager to say he had resigned and wanted no further contact. The other guy and me have only worked at the store for a month. I waited tables at this upscale, trendy restaurant. One of the waitresses was a pretty serious feminist and active volunteer, etc. She was really cool, and feminism was her thing. Anyways, our executive chef was a total a-hole. Really demeaning, racist prick with a bit of a coke habit. He would throw plates of food around, break glasses, fire people on the spot, etc. One day, as he was walking us through the specials, he informed us that a good friend of his was coming in for dinner, and he was to be considered a VIP. The dude came in that night with a bunch of people, like 6 more than the reservation had indicated. All as Jerseyed out as it gets. He got seated in the waitresses section. Within 5 minutes, she put it together that he runs a chain of strip clubs and adult bookstores in the area, and angrily relayed this information to me. After appetizers and a few drinks, this guy started saying demeaning stuff to the waitress about how her uniform hides her rack and how she should take a 15-minute smoke break with him in his car, etc. In between apps and entrees, the chef had the waitress bring out 2 comp bottles of wine, which she dutifully did, and upon uncorking them, she poured them both on this guy, spat in his face, and walked out of the restaurant. The entire place was dead silent. She texted me later that night. We celebrated and ended up dating for 3 years. Broke up on positive terms and remain friends to this day. Good times. It's a long story, but our manager wrote me, my friend, and literally everyone else who had worked that day up because she thought someone stole $20 from her. My friend and I decided to quit, because I'm not going to sign a write-up when I did nothing wrong and she's too stupid to lock her stuff up. I took the paper, simply wrote, "I quit," and handed it back to her. I look at my friend and he looks right at her, just staring at her. Then he slowly crumples up the write-up, puts it in his mouth, and starts chewing, just staring at her. He then turns around, walks to his car, and drives away, still the whole time with the paper in his mouth. It was glorious. Not my story, but my boss's. She worked at a very busy downtown restaurant spot and the line would be flooded with tickets for hours on end. One day, one of the line cooks just stopped amidst all the commotion, stood up straight, paused, and grabbed all of the tickets off of the line, scrunched them into a ball, and put them in his pants. He then put his middle fingers up and rotated facing everyone who was watching in horror, and walked out. This was at a restaurant. The general manager of the place was fired for being a scumbag, pervert, moron. After he was escorted to his car, he drove to the front of the restaurant, got out, ran to the grassy area, and started pulling up handfuls of grass and throwing them at the windows, while screaming like a burnt child. Please describe this scumbaggity, pervertish, moronic behavior. Random memories. He was married and had young kids. When he needed a babysitter, he would drop his children off at employees' houses unannounced. If they refused, he would cut their hours or give them only shitty sections. He left the office safe open one morning, and then left the office door propped open. When money came up missing that night, he blamed the manager who had worked the night before. When confronted about the illogic, he claimed he had a headache and went home for the day. He started a side business on his own, providing food for weddings and other parties. He used the restaurant's food, equipment, and staff to put these things on, but refused to pay for any of it. He would then complain about our food costs being high. When the staff would ask him about getting paid what he promised for the wedding they worked for him, he would say, "I do a lot for you when it comes to your schedule, don't I?" My wife had a late-term miscarriage. I had to change my days off to comfort her. He was a dick about it, so I had to tell him exactly why I needed the change. While I was gone, he spoke about the miscarriage at shift meetings with the staff, making jokes about my manhood and our dead baby. Once I found out about that last one, I confronted him. He denied it. I called the district manager and let him know I was quitting. That got the ball rolling on all this other stuff coming out, and he was fired. I used to work at a fast food place in a small town. We had the run of the mill. So-and-so was arrested. Guess he's not working here anymore. Happened more times than I could count. But the best was when someone didn't show up for his shift. The manager calls his phone and he doesn't answer. It goes to voicemail. He changed his greeting to the following: "Fuck you. I quit." Talking about coworkers arrested. Back in the 80s I was working midnights. We had a coworker turn to us at shift end and tell us, "It's been a pleasure working with you." Turn and walk away. When we called after him asking if he had quit, he said, "Not exactly," and went out the door. We asked the boss what was up, and he had no idea. That evening he was on the news for robbing a bank and then being caught minutes later strolling down the street with the money. Turns out he had AIDS, and back then most treatments were experimental. The company insurance didn't cover treatment, but he had read that people in prison were getting treatment for AIDS, so he did what he felt he had to. A terrible ex-coworker, Crazy K, told everyone except his boss that it was his last day. His boss, a real nice guy, eventually heard what was going on, walked over to him, and asked him if it were true. Crazy K simply said yep, and stood up and walked out. It was best for the company, but Crazy K was my primary source of entertainment at work. He would bring girlfriends, very trashy hookers, to our upscale holiday parties. He got 2 hookers pregnant, proposed to both. They each took the ring and ran off to southern states and sued him for child support. My high school summer job was at Burger King. One year they put me on the schedule when I was supposed to be at a sports camp 6 hours away, and I said, "No, I told you like 3 months ago I need those 2 weeks off." And they replied with, "Well, you have to come back to work then go back to camp." And I was like, okay, so I drove back home and quit. When I got home, there was a manager on the phone for me saying that they have a no quitting policy. I was like, okay, well I quit so, followed by awkward silence. Then she hung up on me. Something similar happened to me in high school when I was working at a Starbucks. I had requested off to go on vacation with some friends for something like 10 days and didn't get the first day off because a manager needed it, despite their knowledge I was going on a long vacation. I find out about it and they want me to find someone to cover or me come in. Nobody will cover, so I get annoyed with their shit and quit. Some things had already happened that led to me feeling like I should get out of there anyway. They obviously don't listen because they call me a few days into my vacation and go, "Hey, just to let you know, you can't quit like that. We're firing you." I ran away after quitting. I was hired by a competing company, put in my 2 weeks, and the boss got suspicious. He came by my desk and told me to follow him into his office to sign a non-competing form, basically saying that after I left there I couldn't work for the competition for 6 months. I was shitting my pants as I got up to follow him. At that exact moment, the phone rang. I picked it up and told him I would be there in 5 minutes. Finished up the phone call, grabbed my shit, and hauled ass out the back door. They eventually did find out that I went to work for the competition, and he sent me an email saying, "Congrats on the new job. I'll have to stop by for a visit one of these days." What is the strangest way you've seen someone quit? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.